All right, I'm back. So now we're going to switch gears and focus on an area that I've been involved with for over 25 years, enterprise technology and enterprise services. So worldwide spending on enterprise IT this year will be $3.7 trillion, of which about $400 billion of it will be spent on software. So we're here to welcome a panel that's going to talk about some of the trends that are driving that spend in the enterprise, how companies worldwide, no matter what vertical they're in, are having to think of themselves as a software company, what that means. And we're going to talk a little bit about where startup opportunities are in enterprise technology. To begin our panel, I want to invite the co-founder of a company called Remitly in Seattle in the mobile remittance space, and he's going to speak a little bit about how Remitly is using technology to power a worldwide payments company. So I want to invite Josh Hugg to the stage, please.
Thank you, Bill. So Remitly our vision is very simple, but yet it's very profound. We are transforming the lives of immigrants through really focusing on their needs, and the primary need that we're really focused on is remittance, and we're sending over $5 billion a year around the world, primarily from the US, Canada, Australia, and United Kingdom. We'll be launching and expanding a lot more, though, over the next year.
Thanks, Josh. Our second panelist is Christina Sass. She's the founder of Andela. Christina?
Hi, good afternoon. Andela was founded on a simple belief that brilliance is evenly distributed. And at the time when we started in 2014, we saw all of our entrepreneur friends and large companies looking for great software developers, and they could either not find them or not keep them. And meanwhile, we saw the continent of Africa as the largest and youngest pool of untapped talent in the world. So we started out, and 4 years later, we are 1,000 people strong. About 700 of those are our software developers, and they're placed as full-time remote developers in about 155 growing companies in 55 cities worldwide. So helping to push forward great distributed work and ensure that enterprise and all growing companies who desperately need tech talent get not just the closest talent, but the best talent. Thanks.
Thank you, Christina. And our last panelist is Matt Mickiewicz. He's the founder of a company called Hired. Matt?
Hi everyone, my name is Matt Mickiewicz. I've been a lifelong entrepreneur. Started my first company when I was 14 years old, so well before I got my driver's license. I'm proud to say I've never had a job working for anybody in my entire life, not even flipping burgers. The last 6 years of my life, I've devoted to Hired.com, which is an online recruiting platform that helps 10,000 employers in 4 countries recruit software engineers, data scientists, product managers, and designers.
Thanks, Matt. So Mark Andreessen famously said a decade ago that software is eating the world, and that every company's got to think of itself as a software company. Josh, I'd like you to start by talking about how are banks responding to this?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting point, because I think we have a very global perspective because we partner with banks in the emerging markets as well as the banks in the developed markets. And what we find is even in the middle of Africa, we're still integrating with banks' APIs, and they might be a little bit behind some of what we would consider to be modern, but it's critical for anybody that wants to grow in these emerging markets for them to embrace software, embrace the services that are necessary for them to scale, such that companies like us can go and just do an integration with an API, and all of a sudden we can bring on a whole other service to their customer base.
Christina, there are well over 20 million software developers in the world. Only 3.5 million of those are US based. Tell us about that.
Don't we know it? We saw last year, I think, 1.3 million unfilled jobs for software developers right here in the United States. And so I just watched a debate on distributed or not distributed. But the fact of the matter is, if those companies want to scale and grow, they're going to have to look at the rest of the 20 million. And we think it's a tragedy that that there isn't more sort of curiosity and openness to great untapped pools of talent. And so at Andela, we've had right now about over 70,000 applicants for our 600 software developers. So just unbelievable talent, and also just the excitement and energy in these tech ecosystems are tremendous. And that's just Lagos, Nairobi, and Kampala. But we see kind of that the caliber of talent across that continent and elsewhere that's going to have to be necessary for companies to plug into to grow.
Are your customers primarily Global 2000 type companies, or are they other software companies?
They're really like sustained growth startups. So Series C and Series D startups that have a tremendous product and now need kind of an army of developers to help that thing grow. And then we do have enterprise level clients as well. We've worked with IBM and Microsoft and Viacom, and so more and more getting into the enterprise space.
Matt, I suspect that you guys have looked closely at AI and machine learning and how that's affecting recruiting. Can you share a little bit of your perspective on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's been numerous companies and attempts at applying AI and machine learning to recruiting. Unfortunately, most of those have produced very few tangible results so far, namely because the input that we have, the resume, is such an inaccurate storyteller of somebody's capabilities, abilities, disposition, how much grit they have, how much they hustle, etc. So unfortunately, we haven't quite solved problems there. I think where we are seeing AI and machine learning be applied is to the searching of candidates based on skill set. So for example, if somebody is searching for a JavaScript engineer, but somebody only has AngularJS or Node.js on their resume, you can apply machine learning to link the two concepts together and surface the match.
What do you think is going to replace the resume moving forward?
That's a great question. I think resumes are fundamentally flawed. They have absolutely no predictive power on interviewing outcomes. And more importantly, they're very backwards looking rather than forward looking. A resume only tells you what somebody has done in the past, not what they want to do next. And a key reason why people begin the new job search in the first place anyway is because they want to learn something, they want to push their boundaries, they want to expand their skill sets. And a backward-looking resume simply doesn't convey those concepts very well.
Can I jump in here?
Yeah.
We have screened over a large pool of candidates, and we've literally stopped including resumes. I went to a recruitment event where I saw these incredible young women technologists, and they asked me about their career path, and I was like, apply. And they didn't apply literally because there was the option to input a resume on our application. And I went back to the office and was like, we got to take this off or put in huge letters that it's optional, because especially for software developers, we look for foreign languages, we look for musical instruments, we look for all kinds of demonstrated problem solving that is a much better proxy for how you apply yourself to one particular problem than the resume. It's an outdated thing that just needs to go away.
Josh, as a hiring manager, you've hired close to 1,000 people now in Remitly.
I see this, and we face this challenge. I think that we have just started to look more international as we've reached that stage where we're at the Series C to Series D stage, and how do we actually continue to expand our workforce? And so we've opened our first remote center, and I think it's a real challenge that you look at right now, because we end up getting a lot of homogenous thinking in our engineering teams, and so we need to figure out how to get the problem-solving talent and scale that talent in a global nature, especially with us, given that we're so distributed across the globe. We're interacting with Vietnamese partners, we're interacting with our Filipino partners. Like, we need cultural diversity in our engineering team as well as in our marketing.
Yeah, I think the fastest way to build an app for, an all-white male software developers is to build it with all-white male software developers. Like, if you want a broader audience to use your tool, get some other thinkers in there, right? I mean, I think this should be obvious, but it isn't still.
There are now over 10,000 SaaS companies. Is there room for a 10,001th? There are now over 10,000 SaaS startups in the world, or established companies. And I'm wondering, for the entrepreneurs in the audience, is there room for a 10,001th startup?
I'll take it from the point of view as a company that's in the last 6 years scaled to over 700 employees worldwide. We use services for so many different things, and most of them are somewhat broken from our point of view. And so I think there's so many opportunities to add, solve pain points for companies that are trying to grow and trying to grow efficiently and leverage software for efficiency.
Yeah, I think there needs to be some mergers and acquisitions in that space, but I do think there's still really underserved populations that, would use other SaaS products. And so I can't speak to it, that much. I can say that it's a really great time to be in the business of software developers.
I think the fact that we have 10,000 SaaS startups just shows how much capital there is in this space in search of the next Salesforce. Increasingly, many of the companies that are being launched are very niche and are unlikely to reach large scale, $100 million plus in revenue. That being said, I'm sure there's lots of interesting innovations that have yet to reach the market. But for entrepreneurs entering this space, it's really important not to just launch a derivative product or a CRM that's 10% cheaper or 30% prettier. The friction costs of switching from an existing solution are incredibly high. Most SaaS contracts on an annual basis. We do 2 and 3 year contracts for many of our clients at Hired.com. So somebody coming in and providing something that's similar to us but only a fraction cheaper is not going to be enough to convince customers to switch and abandon those long-standing, trusting relationships.
Do you have a sense of how many SaaS products each of your companies use?
What scares my security team, how many we use, but we probably use 130, 150.
Wow. I was going to say around 50, but I'd have to go back and count. It's quite a few.
Yeah, we're at a couple dozen as well. Just the sales org itself probably uses like 10 different SaaS tools.
Christina, with the scale that you're operating at, are you looking at developing any of your own development tools?
So we do. So our software developers, before they are placed on our partner companies, they have to, it's Andela as client first. So they join a product team full of engineers and help build the products that we need to scale our business. One of them is an allocations tool. So allocating, basically looking at the software developer, her or himself. What is their technical background? What's their team skills background? What's their personal passions? And then looking at, when we have a new potential partner, exactly how many years of experience they need to kind of make the match. That's a tool that we haven't found a great one in the marketplace. And so we're having to build up that one ourselves. And also in the learning management space, in all of the thing about software development is that you're going to have to reskill multiple times throughout your career. And so even a great learning management system, we're going to have to find a way for people to hold full-time jobs, but also constantly be re-upping their skills. So we're looking at all kinds of tools that integrate with learning management systems. So yes, we have, all of our developers rotate through, integrating into a new team that's our team. And we try to be, as tough on them as any external partner would be, so that they're ready when they integrate, building our tools.
What's the quality of outsourcing today versus a domestic U.S. team?
So I would say it widely varies. We've most of our partners, our long-term partners, we have had to sit through a really painful story about kind of traditional outsourcing. And that's why our developers, we don't do project-based work. It's a year-long placement. And our developers replace a full-time hire. So we're looking for companies that want to grow and that want to build, international talent pipelines. And we find it better to fully integrate with systems beyond stand-ups and those kind of things. I think it does still work. I was just talking to someone here at the conference that said, at GE, who said, we hired a team of 600 in India. It's, ups and downs, wild ups and downs, kind of a nightmare, but you just throw, money and people at a large problem, knowing that that is like a blunt force instrument. And so, we think that with Zoom, with Slack, with Trello, with all of the ways that distributed teams are functioning now and becoming high functioning teams, that a distributed team in a different location can be as high quality as anybody that you would hire in the office. But I think the field itself there's wide variety of costs, level, skill, background. But we're super impressed. We see incredible distributed teams out of Latin America, and that in addition to the ones that you already know.
Thank you, Matt. 5 years ago, there was a lot of talk about big data. It was probably the buzzword that was on everyone's tip of everyone's tongue. Today, it's machine learning, machine intelligence, deep learning, AI. 5 years from now, will we think about those areas in the same way that we now think of big data?
I think the buzzwords often trend before reality and the applications are developed. So when I see a pitch deck that has AI in it, half the time it's not really AI, it's just machine learning or simple if-else loops in the algorithm. That being said, big data is important. It's going to be here to stay. We're going to get more sophisticated at analyzing and utilizing the data. And more importantly, I think organizations are becoming much more thoughtful in how they provide data to empower their employees' decision making. So at Hired, for example, we use Looker as our internal data analytics tool. We have a couple of analysts on staff. We have Looker workshops and training hours to empower people to answer their own questions and not just rely on the data analyst team to provide answers. I think as you think about building the next wave of organizations which require more precise and faster decision-making processes, integrating those types of systems into your organization can be really, really powerful in driving progress, momentum, and growth.
So last question, each of you get 20 seconds. If you're a startup entrepreneur, what area within the enterprise would you focus on? Where would you start? What problem area is the most broken?
For me right now, I know there's a lot of activity, but HR systems is still, I think, there's a lot of efficiency to be gained with smart software.
Christina?
Yeah, I'm not sure I have a pithy, brilliant answer either, but I would say, seamless ways for even the best SaaS products to talk to and integrate with each other. We probably have 4 HR systems for critical parts of our growing business. I have 1,000 people to move in a direction, and we still see you got to come off the performance evaluation platform and jump onto this other one. So smoother integrations.
Matt, you get the last word.
HR systems as well. And not only because I invest in HR tech startups, I see a lot of interesting developments and projects and teams working on this space. But like you mentioned, there's a lot of HR departments that are using very legacy software and don't have access to data like a marketing or sales organization would.
I want to thank our panel.
Thank you.
Thank you.